These are basic government concepts that you need to know to become good citizens.
A man wakes up from a coma and has sudden urges to create good citizens. This by teaching them about the government. Having created the Constitution in first lens as George Washington, he ponders about the importance of the American documents. The American documents, such as the Constitution, are extremely important today as documents like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights outlines the rights of individuals as well as splitting apart the government to avoid a Leviathan-type government, which ultimately inform Americans about their rights, responsibilities, and greater role in the government. However, as he gets out his laptop to check the terms of the Constitution, he realized that the world is now run under an evil Constitution, one that denies the rights of individuals. He runs to find the American people, wanting to tell everyone, including the government, how important it was to balance the ideas of freedom and safety, that the American documents are supposed to outline the purpose of the government in a sense that protects the people from a Leviathan, not harm their rights. In this moment, he finds the American people and tells them how important it is to know that the American government is supposed to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of individuals, that the American documents serve as a reminder of the country's core principles.
The government is supposed to protect our rights, our liberties, our freedoms, our pursuit of happiness. We need safety. Safety is the most important thing for our government. Hobbes himself believed that safety was important because man was a brutish, bigoted idiot that would kill you instantly if you left your door open.
A Leviathan was a form of government that Hobbes envisioned that would ensure the total safety of people to combat the natural state of mankind.
I believe that freedom is the one that we should care about the most. We should give up safety for the freedom of people and their rights and their liberties.
This idea of complete freedom was created by Rousseau, where ideally the people will eventually set aside the natural state of man and become civil people in a society without a government. However, he tells these people that we should give up some of our freedoms for our safety, but we should also keep the rights that benefit mankind, a Lockean ideal. With this Lockean ideal, they realized its importance in shaping the American documents and the livelihood of Americans, so they eventually agreed on this point. When talking about the government, the checks and balances are crucial to Americans because they ensure that no single branch of government, executive, legislative, or judicial becomes too powerful. This system promotes a balance of power, preventing any one branch from overstepping its authority. By giving each branch the ability to limit the powers of the others, checks and balances help safeguard individual freedoms and uphold the principles of democracy. However, there are many flaws to this idea, as there are laws set in place that technically allow the president to bypass this system. In this case, the government has been run by a dictator who abuses their executive orders as they use it to increase their power and control. However, the protagonist himself takes matters into his own hands and attempts to put a stronger check on these executive orders. However, it is argued that putting a stronger check on the executive branch, especially on executive orders, will decrease the efficiency of government action. Others argue that the executive orders are too powerful and are unconstitutional. It is crucial to understand the true nature of checks and balances as imperfect, as there are also flaws like partisan conflict, gridlock, and especially power imbalances, even if marginal. To learn these ideas, we can hold the government accountable, protect our rights, and prevent further abuses of power. To fight for the country in terms of knowledge of the government, and how the government should operate in terms of checks and balances, how we can advocate to protect our rights, and prevent the government from being too powerful. Speaking of checks and balances, the judicial branch plays a crucial role in putting a check on the executive branch, as well as the legislative branch. With the power of the judiciary, they have the power of judicial review, in which they have the authority to examine laws, policies, and executive actions to determine what is constitutional. However, their conclusions can be challenged by attorneys which protect the accused, allowing for a fair trial, showing a check on the judicial branch, and ensuring neutral decision-making.
This was self-defense against tyranny. In the Constitution, it says that tyranny can be uprooted by the use of violence, by the Second Amendment.
With the system that the Constitution and the American documents set in stone, the judicial branch can interpret these ideas to determine constitutionality, showing how ideas of the government's purpose and the American documents themselves intertwine with these concepts. The judiciary is tasked with protecting the fundamental rights of citizens, especially when legislative or executive actions infringe on those rights. Courts can strike down laws that violate civil liberties, ensuring that laws do not harm personal freedoms or undermine constitutional protections. By understanding how our rights are protected by the judicial branch, and understanding the judicial branch in general, we can protect rights threatened by unconstitutional actions. Though it may seem the judicial branch is too powerful, they are checked by both the legislative and executive branch, where the executive can impeach judges and the legislature can appoint federal judges.
People, come here, listen.
Here, one of the most direct ways a community can engage in politics is by voting in local, state, and national elections. Organizing voter registration drives, educating people about candidates and issues, and getting people to the polls are essential activities. Community groups can mobilize around specific issues, like affordable housing, education, or climate change, by organizing protests, rallies, or town hall meetings. This helps amplify the community's voice and puts pressure on elected officials to take action. In this case, the protagonist is trying to gather people and create a bill to overthrow the government, therefore participating in politics. This bill is then introduced to the House or Representatives or the Senate, in which is sent through committee review for approval, in which can be sent back for voting. The process of passing a bill can take a long time, in which the president can veto the bill. Although the president can veto the bill, it will be sent back to Congress for re-evaluation and override the veto, showing check on the executive branch. Essentially, with the power of the people, we can change the system of America by participating in politics, especially with voting, showing the importance and power of the people. Speaking of the power of the people, this power can be swayed towards a specific agenda or political party through the power of the media such as news organizations and such. These biased sources can pertain to the extreme right and left. By understanding that there are sources that are biased and untruthful, we can sway away from these sources to make sure that we can formulate our own conclusions. However, in a way, by understanding these biases, we can understand a multitude of different perspectives to strengthen our own conclusions and better understand the opinions of others, as well as the event that had taken place. Biases include coverage bias, gatekeeping bias, advertising bias, corporate bias, and more. But we can also find biases through websites and charts that check for media bias that pertains to a political party. So how can media bias influence people? They can influence others by highlighting and manipulating certain agendas to make them sound more appealing or unappealing. Different media outlets will ultimately have partisan views, in which they can spread or give out false information, ultimately influencing political actions like voting or advocacy.
Pass the bill. Dumbass. Pass the bill.
Eventually, after applying all the knowledge he had learned, he succeeded in passing the bill to overthrow the corrupt government, and eventually removes the chief executive from office after overthrowing the government.
Although these things are really important, there are also other important things to know that was not covered. 1. We can use the court, the judicial processes, and the Constitution to seek justice for ourselves. By learning our basic constitutional rights, we can make sure that we are able to check authority or others. 2. Independence as an individual in an intellectual manner, I believe, is really important because if you have intellectual independence, you have the ability to create your own conclusions, which is why learning about media bias and the laws is really important. Overall, these concepts, these ideas will overall help you become a better citizen.